acrobatic displays and guttural incantations. Young folks, especially those from humble background like me, found the serendipity of Ibadan around the 70s and the 80s. Odo Dandaru, a stream on the fringe of Mokola, was our swimming bay, and the elevator of Kingsway in Dugbe was our playground. Except for Cocoa House and a couple of high-rise buildings, the skyline was not dotted with skyscrapers, yet the serenity of Ibadan was profound, and the security unimpeachable. Family values were strong in my good old days. During school holidays, we would follow our father to his farm in Idiya, a village settlement in the outskirts of Ibadan. Farms were not an attractive sector to kidnappers or armed robbers then. It was fun in the farm, making small fires to roast corn or yam or rabbit caught by midnight traps. In the twilights of the day, while going back to the village from the farm or sitting around the fireplace in the village hut, Father would regale us with stories of life, wisdom nuggets and politics of yore. It was in one such sitting I knew the plant called Akintola Taku, so named because of the political crisis of the 60s. At other times, we followed Mother to Dugbe Market, where she traded in stockfish. I went to Ibadan Polytechnic, Ogun State Polytechnic, and the University of Ibadan. And in my trajectory, educational value was in the quality. Handphones and other modern gadgets of pleasure were few, so there were less distractions. There was nobility of character among students and lecturers. Cultism, sex for marks, student prostitution, and absenteeism were only hush words, unlike now that those vices are threatening the survival of the academia. Our children need to know how we roll back in the days and begin to invent a more quality life. They deserve better today and brighter future, so that they can also have their own good old days in the fullness of time. I believe we need collective efforts to ensure that we make the difference in the lives of our youth now for a better tomorrow. That is why I am joining Sir Shemore Badijo in this patriotic drive. How about you? Won't you rather join us? Thank you.
The People's Democratic Party (PDP) presidential aspirant Bukola Saraki announces that the party is making progress to ensure a consensus candidate. And President Muhammadu Buhari has signed the highest number of bills since the Fourth Republic began, says the Senate President Ahmed Lawan. This is Plus Politics. I am Mary Anako. A presidential aspirant on the platform of the People's Democratic Party (PDP), Abubakar Bukola Saraki, has said that they are making progress to ensure the emergence of one consensus candidate. He spoke in an interview with journalists after meeting with delegates of the People's Democratic Party in Kaduna. He noted that the party has a process that unites and is less rancorous. On what he will be doing differently if he became the president of Nigeria, he said he would ensure unity, security, and that the economy works. He added that the country needs a president with empathy. Well, joining us to discuss the issue of consensus and break it down, we have Ilemona Onoja. He's a spokesman for Abubakar Bukola Saraki campaign organization, and we're also being joined by Gbadebo Rhodes Viva. He is a PDP gubernatorial aspirant in Lagos State. Thank you so much, gentlemen, for joining us.
Thanks for having
Thank you,
Thank
Lamina,
you
for
so
joining
much,
us.
sir.
Great, great.
Hi, Miriam. Thank you for having us.
Great. I'll start with you because this is your principal, and he's talking about the issue of consensus, something that may not necessarily be alien to the PDP, but it's not necessarily their modus operandi. I'll start by asking, what's your position on this issue of consensus, being that Bukola Saraki himself actually initiated the idea of a consensus? I mean, he talked about the consensus arrangement and that it began with 3 presidential aspirants.
First of all, just to correct that impression, while he grew to be very fond of the idea and a big promoter of it, he wasn't the originator. It was originated by one of the other governors who was a party to that consensus conversation at the time. Now, to address it, our understanding of this entire consensus conversation is born out of worry about the sheer number of aspirants on the platform of the party, particularly seeing as the party is in opposition. At the time of this interview, there are 15 presidential aspirants. From our point of view, what that means is that you have 15 sets of narratives being promoted within the party. You have possibly 15 camps. You have, all sorts of dynamics that are related to the pursuing of the ambitions of these 15 aspirants. The worry is that this may negatively affect the party. We have just come off the back of a protracted period of crisis. We recall that when Dr. Bukola Saraki, and he should know because of the time he spent as chairman of the National Reconciliation and Strategy Committee, you recall that during the 16 months lifespan of that committee, he traversed the length and breadth of this country and had discussions with leaders and critical stakeholders across the party, much of which has formed the background of his belief that we need to manage properly the process that leads to the selection of a presidential candidate later in the month, to ensure that we emerge on the other side of the primaries a united, cohesive, and properly functioning political machinery. The idea is if we can do one of two things. The whole consensus idea is that we can do one of two things. One, we can either emerge with one single consensus candidate around whom everybody else rallies, or two, we can have a smaller bunch of consensus candidates, small groups. People talk to themselves, collapse their structures into one another, and then we can reduce the number of candidates or aspirants on the platform of the party so that the process is less rancorous, is less divisive, and it's easier to manage, such that our party emerges on the other side of the primaries, like I said, a functional, unified political machinery.
The PDP has been opposition for almost 8 years, meaning that they should obviously know what the problem of Nigeria is, and I'm saying should, because I do not know if they do have the solutions to Nigeria's problems, being that our problems are multifaceted. But if we have 15 of these men who think that they have the solution to Nigeria's problems or are gunning for that revered seat, should it be a difficult, thing to say, well, since we all have, the same idea, or rather we all have the same notion in mind, which is to save Nigeria, should it be a difficult thing for these men to band behind one person or choose two people who they would all say, let's band behind them and then may the best man win? Should it be that difficult for the PDP, being that they've been in opposition for that long and they should be ready? In fact, everybody was hoping that by this time the People's Democratic Party would be ready to go for this office without having so many people dragging the voters in many directions.
I can tell you one thing, right? And it is that without a doubt, the 15 aspirants all are motivated by the desire to pull us back and from the brink of the 8 years or 7 years, by next year to be 8 years, of APC misrule, where these 15 men, all people of very good standing in our society, not just by virtue of their political careers, but also by content and character, it lead people like me to be able to say that I can guarantee that however we emerge, whoever emerges on the other side of the primaries as candidates of the political party will be much better than whoever the APC offers. We can say that without equivocation. However, what you see is that these people are not only desire to achieve the ambition, the personal ambition, but also are motivated by a burning passion to ensure that this misrule that the APC has brought us this far into over the course of the last 7 years is terminated next year, without a doubt. So it's, on the one hand, while you can say, oh yeah, we do need to talk and find a way to line up behind one or two other candidates, we must also recognize what the motivations are. And the truth about it is, as with motivations such as that, when there is a firm belief in the ability to do better than what we currently have, it takes some conversing, it takes some negotiation, it takes quite a lot of consultation and deliberation. One thing that I know is that over the years, the PDP has always proven that it has entrenched within its systems guardrails that guide the party to ensure that it emerges on the other side. We believe that those guardrails haven't failed us in the past. We believe that they will not fail us now.
Okay. But let's talk about the fact that zoning is on the table. Whether the PDP is throwing its ticket open or not, zoning is a conversation that most zones, whether it's PANDEF, whether it's the Middle Belt Forum, whether it's Ohanese, they're having this conversation. And we've heard these groups, give ultimatums. They've also said they're not going to throw their weight behind any political party that does not pick somebody from the South. I know that this is a very sensitive issue, but why do you think the PDP chose to go the route of throwing the ticket open? Because many people hoped that even if the APC was going to go with a consensus candidate or go to the North, that the PDP would be at least able to listen to the yearnings of the people.
Yes, there's the yearnings of the people, but like Lemona talked about, there's a process that must allow that your party does not implode, regardless of what people feel is the right way that things should go. Now, there's also a primary process, which is the part where they select the candidate. And all of these leaders have influence in all their states. They have influence on delegates. Pushing all of these conversations and highlighting them should also sway the delegates to vote en masse in bloc for a particular candidate that would reflect and embody this zoning values that people are seeking. And I think that in so doing, you come out with a stronger party. Now, everybody feels that ideally power should shift. That has been encoded in the DNA of the PDP. It's something that has always been done. But then people will tell you that those modus operandi were broken by Goodluck Jonathan, right? And now you cannot say what happened then, you just want to ignore it. But then some other people will tell you that even when Jonathan went to a zone to the South, northern candidates were still coming out, right? So there was also a disrespect for zoning even then. It's just that the party guided, like he said, the guardrails that guide the party to where it's supposed to go. For me, the first and foremost thing in my mind, because I was at the convention that produced Atiku Abubakar, as long as there is a free and fair primary, because that is really what the PDP is about. It's very democratic. Once there's a free and fair primary, everybody will rally around the person that emerges from that process. So whether it's 15 candidates or 3 candidates, I'm not too worried, because there's always a way that everybody will come together. Because when you have such huge, strong political figures, the only way that there can be peace is fairness. and a process of fairness that produces
Talking
the
about
candidates.
justice and fairness, the governor of Rivers State, who is very vocal, Governor Wike, had spoken, re-echoing what Governor Ogwuanyi had said about if we were to go with the issue of consensus, that there has to be justice and fairness or fair play. But then you talked about party processes. What's the essence of going through a process and losing the voters? Because again, you as the party, you're giving us the person that we will vote for at the end of the day. This is who you're saying your flag bearer is.
Yeah.
But if that flag bearer does not actually show or mirror what the people want, that means you're losing votes to whoever decides to mirror what society is looking for at this point. Again, I'm not calling what the voters are wanting, but I'm saying this is what's been making headlines over time.
Yes, and you need to understand that the party is a reflection of Nigeria in itself. You have delegates that come from every state and all gather, and each of them will cast their vote. So if in Lagos State, delegates are saying power must come to the south, and this is what is fair, and they cast their votes, or your state, they cast their votes. You have Benue State cast their votes. What should come out of it should be the desire of Nigeria in general. What should come out of that process? So that's why I highlight that, unlike the APC that's more focused on a consensus or imposition, as long as that process is free and fair, you should have something that reflects what Nigeria, entirety of it, want.
Talking about what Nigeria wants, Ilemina, what do you think Nigeria wants? I'd like to refer to a statement credited to an elder statesman in the People's Democratic Party, Chief Bode George, who has said that the PDP will be defeated in 2023 if it does not zone its ticket, its presidential ticket, to the south. Now, your principal obviously is not from the south, neither is he from the southwest, and he's also gunning for that seat. I'd really love to hear what you have to say.
What do I think Nigeria wants? I think that Nigeria wants, I mean, if I was going to be political, I would say that I think that Nigeria wants, if I was going to be purely political, I would say I think that Nigeria wants my boss to be president. But what does Nigeria want? Nigeria wants a kind, visionary, focused, committed, courageous kind of leader. I think that's ultimately what it wants. I think that if we come down to the brass tacks, we will see that the problems that plague us are neither northern nor southern. Insecurity doesn't care whether you come from the north. I don't think that the person who is suffering insecurity in Katsina or Zamfara, or in Benue or Kogi, or in the southwest or the southeast really cares the origin of the person who's going to stop for him. I think that the person who is experiencing hunger in Bauchi or Borno or Kano or Kaduna doesn't really care who's going to provide food, the origins of who's going to provide food or jobs or employment. I think that we don't really care who's going to stop the origins of the person who's going to stop oil theft. That is at unprecedented levels, and therefore depriving government of the necessary revenue that we require to grow our country or to provide development. I think that when it comes to the brass tacks, Nigerians just want a good, kind, empathetic, sensitive, communicating, visionary, courageous leader. Someone who's going to be able to make the tough decisions that we need to make in a post-Buhari era without being mean about it, and who is empathetic and humane in the execution of those decisions. I think Nigeria wants a president who respects the rule of law. I think that Nigerians want a president who is able to safeguard our institutions. Right now, one of the talking points over the course of the day is that, CBN governor is there desecrating the institution of the CBN by being a member of a political party and purchasing forms to contest for the office of president. I think Nigeria wants a president who's not going to let that happen on his watch. Doesn't matter where it's from. Just uphold the value and the sanctity of our institutions. I think that Nigeria wants a president that respects the judiciary, that respects the rule of law, that safeguards our constitutional rights and freedoms. I think that's what Nigeria wants. Ultimately, yeah, we will have the conversation about where should he be from. But the truth about it is, when you sift all that away, at the heart of the matter, it cannot be determined by origins. It cannot be determined by which God you worship, what language you speak, where you're from. These are somewhat, and I say this most respectfully, these are additives. I think that at this point in time, the many Nigerians like myself, in millions, who realize that we're simply too insecure, we're simply too poor, we're simply too hungry, we're simply too unemployed to allow ethnicity and religion be the determinants of our future. I think that's where we have come to, and I think that is fundamental.
As good as that sounds, the realities on the ground is that we are a people that are divided by ethnicity and religion. And the truth of the matter is that these agitations would not stop if something is not done about it. Again, many would say, hold on. Many have said that why all of a sudden are we saying let's jettison the idea of zoning when it's the churn of the southeast? I mean, you have former governor Peter Obi, who's from the southeast, and many people are saying, well, give the southeast an opportunity. Again, I'm not also saying that just give the man the ticket, but why are we all of a sudden saying, oh, Nigeria needs this type of president and that type of president? Does it mean that the Southeast does not have those kinds of people who can also who can be put forward for those tickets? Because every time we have this conversation, people always say, oh, Nigeria doesn't need someone who's, ethnicity is not the solution to the problem. But then we've had a gentleman's agreement, whether it's written or not, that these tickets would be zoned. Now the Southeast is saying, let's have, an opportunity at it. And the PDP saying, no, let's throw it open. May the best man win.
Let me tell you something. One of the reasons why, from the Bukola Saraki campaign organization, we try not to focus on a historical recount of how we got to that conclusion that, throw it open, may the best man win, is that it can be a little divisive and people can easily get offended by it. And we believe that to be able to win the elections in 2023, you need a united, cohesive, fully functional party machinery. Otherwise, if we answer the question, you cannot talk in all honesty about a lack of or throwing the ticket open in 2022 without first talking about 2010 and 2011 or 2015. You simply can't. If you do a historical recount, you will realize that in 2010, when President Goodluck Jonathan got into office, there was agitation in certain parts of the country who said it was the turn of the North. And the zoning principle was violated then. Was it not? You will recall also that in 2010, as part of the negotiations to get the ticket, there was a signed agreement, and copies of that agreement are on social media that said, I will run for only one term. That was violated also. You will recall that in furtherance of the second violation, in 2014, in the build-up to the 2015 elections, there was only one set of forms printed and sold to any aspirant to contest for the office of President of the Federal Republic of Nigeria on the platform of PDP. Again, public information. Now, if you take into consideration all these things and you continue a cycle of, oh, you violated, what will happen is that we will never have a functional party machinery. And without a functional party machinery, you simply cannot win elections. It's really that simple. So it's a little curious that people only want to discuss history in the context of 2022, 2023, without wanting to discuss the contextual history of 2010, 2011, and 2014, 2015. If we're going to do a historical conversation, do the entire history of the party, starting from 2010, when the zoning principle was first violated. But in our camp and equally increasingly resonating around the country. Leave that alone. Don't do that historical recount. Why? It will simply further divide the party. Very simply. Instead, let us come to a place where, you know what, we have never denied that there are competent people within the ranks of the PDP in every geopolitical zone in this country, in the northeast, northwest, north central, in the southeast, south, and southwest. One of those competent people is sitting right next to you. My friend Gbadebo is simply an amazing person who has the sort of skill set to be a leader in any other country. He'll be in very high demand. As a matter of fact, he is in demand here. And I'm very proud of his aspirations to be governor of Lagos State. But when you take into consideration that the potential of dividing the party, if we discuss ethnicity and religion as the primary tools to select our candidates, is very high once we take into consideration all of our party's history. Instead of discussing that, let's discuss competence. I don't want my principal, my Oga, to be discussed solely on the basis of where he's from, or on the basis of the God who he worships. He's a competent man who has character, who has capacity, and who has the content that is required to lead a country like ours at a time like this.
I'm going to have to send you an invoice for this campaign, but let's come back to so I did ask him a question that he nicely evaded. Bode George has spoken. Edwin Clark has spoken. Many people are speaking on this issue. As much as we're saying for the good of the party, we can't run away from this zoning conversation. He said, if the PDP does not zone this ticket to the South. Now, the South is big. Let's not forget, we have the Southwest, and most of the people we're seeing are from the Southwest. We also have the South-South. We also have the Southeast, and this is detail for both parties. We're seeing more people. So when he says, if this ticket is not zoned to the South, then the People's Democratic Party will lose its ticket. What do you presume this means?
I'll say that the party itself is in a quagmire. And like I was saying earlier that the first person that broke this rotational movement of power between the North and the South that's really encoded in the DNA of the party was Goodluck Jonathan. This is a fact. You cannot, like he said, you cannot...
But that's 2 governments ago, and the realities of Nigeria today...
Exactly.
It's not necessarily a Goodluck Jonathan problem, is it?
No, it's not. But
so how do we solve it?
But the issue with that is when you have an equation that gives you the results that allows you to balance. You go from north to south, north to south. When you start taking out variables from that equation, you now start having a problem where some people will not agree to something. Right? You look at the way our national chairman emerged, right? It was a situation where it should go to the North, right? And you see how a consensus happened without any force or anything, and one person was produced. And then all the other offices were zoned properly because that is what is in the DNA of the party. Now you have a situation where some people will bring up what happened in the past. Some people will bring up the fact that we've been ruled for 8 years by a northerner. We cannot say that the PDP is in a bubble, and that did not happen, because what happened the last time with the PDP was we had a southern president. So you have people coming from all sides of the divide, and that's why I say that Chief Bode George has influence over delegates in the Southwest and probably over delegates in the South. He has friends across the country. Same thing with Edwin Clark. The delegates are going to carry these ideas to the National Convention. And this convention or this Congress is going to be one that's going to be free and fair, and the will of the people will emerge from that process. I have no doubt about it.
Well, I want to say thank you, gentlemen, for being part of this conversation. We continue to keep our eyes on the story of zoning as it develops. Ilemana Onoja is a spokesman for Abubakar Bukola Saraki campaign organization, and Gbadebo Rhodes Viva is a PDP gubernatorial aspirant for Lagos State. Thank you so much, gentlemen, for being part of the conversation. We'll take a quick break. When we come back, we'll be talking about the bills that the president has assented to so far. Well, the Senate president is saying he's assented to the most bills in history. We'll be right back.
You see, the greatest robbery of this election, Marianne, is the fact that it has been, because of the misrule of President Muhammadu Buhari, it has become an ethnic issue rather than an economic issue, rather than an issue of saving our education sector, rather than the insecurity in the Northeast and in all parts of the North. Now everybody is more concerned about where the president comes from than what the president can do, because everybody has seen the marginalization, the ethnicentrism that has been at play under the APC.
There is a northern president that will be completing 8 years in 2023. And let me restate that the presidency is not of the party. The presidency is the president of the country. So whether it is APC or whether it is PDP or whether it is any other party, he is the president of Nigeria, not the president of the party. And for us, and I speak on behalf of Afeni Ferret, Ohanes Indigo, Sandel, and the Middle Belt Forum, under the auspices of Southern and Middle Belt leaders. And I'm restating the position of that forum, that any political party in Nigeria, any of the major political parties, there are political parties that we know that are motion parties, any of the major political parties, particularly APC and PDP, that feel the other candidates will not have our support. And it's a statement of fact.
Journalism in Nigeria is an all-commerce affair. Why is it an all-commerce affair? It's only in journalism where you see somebody who read an engineering course or maybe a medical course, practicing as either a broadcaster or a reporter, doing stories, somebody who probably read psychology in school, So there is the lack of, what should I say, standardization, So all of these things, pose a very serious challenge, in terms of staying on stories and following up on stories.
The Southeast governors, led by the governor of Ebonyi State, has to really sit down again to redefine what they established as the Eastern Security Network. The Ebubago Security Network.
Yes.
The Ebubago Security Network was meant to be a regional security outfit like Amoteco, but if we watch the way the different other 3 governors or 4 governors of the Southeast have been acting or behaving, it does appear that Ebubago has only been operating in Ebonyi. And that I won't talk about it, because what is even doing in Ebonyi, it is not going after their non-government, it's only going after political opponents.
Okay, agreed, yes. PDP and APC, the 2 major parties, they have a zoning formula which they have been applying since the democratic dispensation came into play. But then what we see playing out today is like it's a function of the entire system. All of a sudden everybody is saying, oh, we don't believe in zoning. We don't want to follow zoning anymore. So something is, definitely wrong in the structure of these 2 political parties. And this is where the Igbo leaders need to go to first and resolve issues. Why is it that they're now saying they don't want to do zoning? What is the problem? So you can't tell me that, we can blame Mr. President for everything, but we can't be blaming Mr. President when the political parties themselves are not doing the right thing.
I don't know about pushing it to the Southeast, because obviously those in the South, in the Southwest, under the platform of the APC do not have any obligation to the PDP. So I think it's only a natural thing for them to want to, insist that the president, if a president can emerge from the Southwest, should emerge from the Southwest. But I think what is now happening is that there are even insinuations that even EC that has zoned the presidency to the Southwest is beginning to think twice about it. Perhaps they feel that there's a weakness in the South and that the South has not been able to come up with. They require consensus needed to put pressure on the North to give up on the issue of the presidency. But they'll be making a terrible mistake if they think that after 8 years under the president, that the North can remain in power for another 8 years. That will be chaos, and that's why people are warning.
It's still Plus Politics now. The Senate President Ahmed Lawan has stated that President Muhammadu Buhari has assented to more bills than all his predecessors did since the Fourth Republic started. Lawan, according to a statement by his spokesman Ola Awani, applauded Buhari for his cooperation with the legislature to get things done. He said the current National Assembly stood out from the previous ones because of its ability to conquer the most complex and critical legislation that had defied passage or assent. Now joining us to discuss this are Christian Wogu and Tunji Abdulhamid, both are legal practitioners. Thank you so much, gentlemen, for joining us.
It's my pleasure, Miriam.
All right.
Thank you for having me.
Great. I'm going to start with you, Mr. Wogu. Let's look at the statement by Mr. Lawan and the fact that he started by saying that not just the executive but the legislature has been able to push bills to get assent from Mr. President, as opposed to other republics, whether in fact it's from the Fourth Republic. So let's take a look at all of these republics from the Fourth all the way down to now, and what role they've played in bills, and then we'll get to what these bills are for.
Yeah, we find that the Senate President made an open-ended statement. He didn't really give us the basis, the figures, the facts to make such sweeping statement that they have done more than their predecessors or his predecessor. And I really think that for a man at that level to make such statement, his spokesman, there should be a basis, and then assuming without conceding that what he's saying is correct, I really think that it's somewhat kind of insensitive. Yes, you said you're going to ask questions around that axis, but I could just quickly take a shot at that, because for bills to be assented, for him to have assented more bills than his predecessors, what does that mean to the student who is at home? Because the negotiations that the Senate President should be doing with ASU, either way, to make sure such a statement, what does it mean to such person? What does it mean to the fact that you buy 200 naira loaf and you squeeze it, and it's what does it mean? What does it mean to the fact that a lot of young people, Nigerians generally, are escaping and dying in the seas and in the deserts? So I think that such statements should be made with a lot of caution, bearing in mind that even if it's a political statement, it has to be tied down to some realities. Okay, yes, signed so many bills. To what end?
Great. You asked the question that I wanted to ask, but let me just give you some background. He made this statement actually as a guest lecturer at a parliamentarians lecture series, which was facilitated by the National Institute of Legislative and Democratic Studies. But I'll give you figures. He declared that President Buhari had been the most proficient in granting assent to bills, as available data on gazetted acts showed that between 2015 and 2021, Buhari had assented to more than 84 bills, the highest since the commencement of the Fourth Republic. 84 bills, which means that this is the highest. But you asked a great question, which is to what end? And you've also asked about the fact that what does this replicate to? Do these laws become enforced for the betterment of the average Nigerian? And I think that those questions need to go to the Senate President. But you also mentioned something about a political statement. I mean, if this were to be a political statement, why do you think the Senate President was making it?
Well, basically to justify, I hope you pardon me to say this, to justify non-performance.
So you think that the president has not performed?
Yeah, we are looking at pragmatic situations. We are looking at realities. We are looking at real life. Yes, some of these persons, with due respect, Miriam, do not know the cost of pure water. They don't. They don't know they don't know what is. I mean, the fact that if you go to a canteen and you pay 500 naira, you still come out like you've not eaten. They don't know these things. So that's when I say incompetence. I'm not saying as a person, of course, for him to be there, he must have a pedigree, must have a precedent where he's coming from. But in terms of reality...
Well, just so you know, the Senate President has had one of the longest tenures in the National Assembly, 35 years. So he does have a pedigree.
Yes, we are not contesting that. We are looking at deliverable. You know, we are looking at the things that a statement, call it political or whatever, when it's made, people will hail and say, true, that's correct. I just felt it in my bank account. I just felt it when I went to the market. I just felt it when I took a drive. I mean, even to fly now, it's a huge challenge. So these are the things we are looking at. That's why we're saying that such statements should be made, should be tied down to certain realities, not just be made open and let it just fall into the ground and maybe attract more votes. We think we should have a better deal than that.
Tunji, let me toss this one to you. I'd like to quote the Senate President. He said, and I quote, "For 20 years, the National Assembly had attempted reforming the petroleum industry without much success. It was first introduced in the 6th Assembly, 2007 to 2011, but failed to scale through. Similar efforts by the 7th Assembly failed to secure concurrence by the Senate, while in the 8th Assembly, the bill was passed but failed to secure presidential assent." And he now goes on to say that in the 9th Assembly, we prioritized the bill in our legislative agenda and worked closely with the executive to secure a passage and assent. Now, this historic achievement of the National Assembly means that Nigeria now has legal governance, regulatory and fiscal frameworks for the petroleum industry that would promote optimal utilization of the country's abundant oil and gas resources. I'd like to really hear your thoughts on this PIB because you and I have had conversations on it.
And I am laughing because I don't know the basis for making that those comparisons and those statements. You see, like my colleague said, it's a mere political statement. You know, the PIB was passed by the president, and yes, since that time that was passed. What has changed? Nothing. It was passed without even, it was passed few months after being passed. There are requests for amendment of changes or some other thing like that. So it shows that it was not properly thought out before it was signed. We just signed for signing's sake, for record, for the purpose of we have signed certain number of bills for what is happening today. You just want to play that record, statistics, that look, certain number of bills have been signed, that is Mr. President. Whether those bills have effect on us or not, it does not matter as far as he's concerned, because that's why he's making those bases. I don't understand the basis of what he's saying. The PIB bill was passed at the 8th Assembly as well. That because of the fact that the president at that time, the state president at the time, was not in good book of the president. In other words, they were trying to make him look as he's the one blocking the progress of the country. They refused to assent to the bill, not because the bill was not properly done, not because it was not properly thought out, but because the president just want to show that look, see as far as it's coming from the 8th Assembly, led by Dr. Bukola Saraki, I will not assent to it. That was how I see it. So today, bragging about the number of bills that have been signed by the president, I do not see the basis for it because I have not seen the effect of those bills that have been signed by the president. In fact, most of these bills that have been signed by the president are also being disobeyed by the same president. They are not being followed. The electoral act that have just been passed, we see what is going on now. Certain things have been done without regard to that law, and the president says nothing. He does nothing. He was not to be attended. So as far as I'm concerned, bragging about whether he has signed bill or not is not an issue for me. The issue is that how well has this bill helped our situation? How well has it developed our circumstance? How well has it changed our circumstance in this country? And talking about the bill being passed, that is the job of the National Assembly, is to pass bill and pass law into law. So if you are passing bill in circumstances that we are here now, because circumstances that we have now is not the same as that we were before now. So things must change and we must improve on what is on ground. And that's what they are doing. They are doing their job. As far as I'm concerned, those jobs is not even enough to even have effect on us as a citizen of this country. So if he's bragging that, look, the bill they passed have changed our lives, so I will say, yes, he has the right to brag in that regard. But he's just bragging without giving us any basis for that bragging. As far as I'm concerned, it's just a mere political brag.
Let me give you some more information. Again, quoting the Senate President, he said this bill, the PIB, would enhance social and economic development and promote a conducive investment climate in the industry and foster development of host communities. That's one. Now, he said, without sounding immodest, we have equally concluded work on several other important pieces of legislation that have been signed into law, all of which have potentials to significantly enhance various aspects of our national lives. And then he goes further to say, the Finance Act of 2020 successfully amended 17 key aspects of the extant laws, including 7 existing tax laws. He also said the CAMA 2020 Act also represents a landmark achievement, representing the first time in 30 years that this law has been updated. Other bills of great economic significance that have been passed by the National Assembly and awaiting presidential assent include the Public Procurement Act of 2007, Recovery of Public Property Bill, and the Amendment of Assets Management Corporation Act, among others. So you're talking about the fact that these things may not have an effect on, our daily lives, but he's also making a case that these bills have potential, in his words, I'm using his words, to change, our national life.
Potential.
Go ahead.
Marianne, potential. We are still talking about potential. When the bill has been passed about many months ago now. The PIB has been passed since 2019 or 20 or 21. Yet we have not seen the effect of that bill. In fact, I'm aware that there are about 2 or 3 amendments have been proposed regarding the bill. In fact, 2 months after the passage of the bill, certain things were being put forward. Certain things were not known. They were not. In other words, it was just signed for tiny thing. The president just want to sign it just for record. Because you can see, if you see the electoral that was signed now, it was signed when it was not even properly done. When the president even agreed that this bill is not proper, then I'm signing just for signing sake. What is that? The PIB bill, as far as I'm concerned, I have not seen the effect of it. I have not seen the difference between what we used to have in terms of NNPC and what we have today. I have not seen any difference between them, whether it's limited ability or not. I have not been able to see the difference between the two. We are still operating the same way. We are still doing the same thing. So as far as I'm concerned, the bill, yes, it's the duty of the job. The president signing a bill into law is not a big deal. That is the job. He must do it. That is what you need to do. So if you sign a bill into law, you are doing your job. So I don't have to praise you for that. Do your job, and that's why you are being paid for. That's why you are there. So what I'm after is that if he's telling me that those will have been signed to law are now giving us more joy, and now giving more security to us, and now giving us more welfare, and now giving us more relaxation of mind, then I would say, yes, he's talking. As far as I'm concerned today, he's just making statements and statistics without any iota of benefit to me, as far as I'm concerned.
Mr. Wogo, let me come to you. The issue of our budgets, which also translates into whether we're asking for infrastructural developments, good road networks, power, energy, is something that he also talks about. He talks about the fact that the 9th Assembly has also successfully pushed for a return to the January to December budget cycle, which was, according to him, made possible in collaboration between the President and members of the Executive, who have since 2019 ensured early preparation and presentation of this budget. I would like to hear your thoughts on that.
Miriam, the fact that a budget should run from January to December is not something that anybody in office should say that is an achievement.
But it's something we had struggled with over the years.
No, yes, if we had trouble with it, it's like saying, like everybody says when it's an election campaign, I'll give you water, I'll give you these basic things. In fact, I will even give you human rights, which is fundamental to existing. See, the point is this. Whether the budget is running, of course, it has to run from January to December. But the point is, the budget, the major issue of budget in Nigeria is non-performance. You find at the end of sometime even before the end of the budget tenure, you hear that there is a bill now for supplementary budget, an additional budget. The other one that just passed, somebody is saying it only performed 10%, 25%. These are challenges that we need to deal with.
But quick question, because we're out of time. We complain about these budget cycles and non-performance. Who's challenging it? Apart from SERAP, kudos to SERAP. They are always filing suits and asking questions. But where are the other people? Who's pushing to ask the questions? Where does the money go? If it's only performed 10%, what happened to the rest of the 90%? We're not asking these questions. And these guys are coming back to ask for your vote. So really, should we just be talking about non-performance?
Who should be asking the question, I tell you, is the media, is the press. You know, sometimes I feel that the media should really...
The press is asking those questions, but is it just the press that is being
but
represented in the National Assembly?
Let's not even begin to label them. The real person that should determine how the budget goes and make sure it performs is the commander-in-chief, is the president, is the governor, is the local government chairman. Those are the people that we have given our trust, our mandate, you know, to deal with our money. It's all of those things are our money. You know, so if they are not doing it, they're in default, and in a huge default for that matter.
Who's going to hold them to account?
EFCC. If only EFCC can also live up to its bill, we can really get it right in this country.
Well, I want to say thank you, gentlemen, because we are out of time. Christian Wogu and Tunji Abdulhamid are both legal practitioners. Thank you, gentlemen, for being part of the conversation and talking for development. Well, that's all we have for you tonight on Plus Politics. To round up today's show, Nigerians tell us what they think about the APC's 100 million naira nomination forms. And that's on Street Views. I'm Mary Anna Cohn. We'll be back tomorrow at 7 p.m. talking for development. Have a good evening.
As a people, these are things that we need to take into consideration when making our choice of a party to support or the candidates to support, because there is consequence to such things being put in place. You don't expect someone that pays a huge price and buys from his pocket to actually then not want to recoup that money. Where do they get such money from to buy just a form where it's not guaranteed you're going to win? So, as citizens, we need to be watchful of that and make our decisions.
It's not ideal, especially if you look at what's going on in the country now. 100 million is a lot of money. I don't want to use the word absorb, but it's a lot of money. And the consideration is, for me, is what's the basis? How did you come about 100 million? I think the other parties are doing 40 million, 35. Even 10 million is a lot of money, given the fact that we're looking for a leader now who doesn't necessarily have to have all the way to do financially, but a leader who knows what it is that the country needs or is expected of him.
They are making the money for the party. The party belongs to the money belongs to the party. So you can never say maybe it's wrong or it's right. Because even though they say it's a trillion. If you have the power, you do it, you pay it.
It doesn't make any sense at all. That's too much. At least there have been like 50,000 at least. Actually, that's too much. 100 million, no. 100 million, 100,000, I don't understand. 100 million, no, that's too much. No, it's too much. No.
If a Nigerian, an individual will bring out 100 million from his purse to buy for form to run for the presidency, meaning that he has trillions of naira in his account. Therefore, EFCC is supposed to go there and find out what is working. If you happen to buy the form too, what are you going there to do? You must bring your money back, put your interest before you think of others.
That's ridiculous. In fact, when I heard the news, and I'm wondering, where do they want like genuine people to actually get this kind of money? People that can afford it are people that are actually stealing. The other time, a certain man did a burial and EFCC invited him over to probe him because of the money he spent for the burial. So EFCC should also invite these ones that are able to buy these forms and then probe them and ask them where they got that money from, because you can't tell me it's not it's genuine. Even if it's genuine, when they enter now, they will want to steal and get back that money.
Nigeria's Niger Delta region, from where the black gold fuels Africa's largest economy, where the lines between wealth and poverty has never been thinner. Conflicts, poverty, insecurity, and environmental challenges daily confront the region. How can the Niger Delta story be changed for the better?
Join Mamode Akuga at 9 p.m. every Friday evening on Plus TV Africa as he probes deep in search of solutions.
Inside the Niger Delta with Mamode Akuga, the authentic voice of Nigeria's oil-rich region.
Nigeria, by extension, Africa, is faced with a lot of challenges. The growing youth population with little engagement, that is a ticking time bomb. We are a blessed people